Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Porch. We have another podcast that I'm very excited about.
You should be.
I am, and I'm with my friend Shila Sharps, who I have known for a long, long time, and it's probably close to 30 years.
I would think that's correct.
I think it's over.
Yes.
And
I was in my 20s.
yes, you were at Earl's.
Yes, I was.
And and I don't know what happened. I just met you, and you've always been a good lady.
Thank you.
And
I was the day shift leader, and I came over to your table, and I was talking to you.
Really?
Yeah, and that's how. Yeah, because I used to, shocking, I know, go around and talk to people.
Yeah, you were a visitor.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it always made it, so that's how we met.
Yeah.
That is how we met.
Visitors are good.
Yeah, you and I were at the table together. You were sitting with a couple, but I didn't know who that was, and I don't think I ever retained that. Obviously, it didn't matter. I remembered the people that did.
Yeah. Not sure. So we're going to talk about Shila's life, and we're going to get down to, we're going to talk about some immigration because she's very knowledgeable about that. We're going to talk about her life as a new councillor for the city of Medicine Hat, and that's since October. And she's done a great job. I'm a big fan of Shila when it comes to political stuff. Very proud of her, and I think she's shown really quickly what I can expect in the next 3 years as well, or 3.5 years. So I think Medicine Hat's very lucky. And I think a lot of the people of Medicine Hat have been touched in a lot of ways with Shila. And so I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to let Shila talk about her life. And we're going to kind of, basically get to where we are today. So you were born in Medicine Hat.
I was born in Medicine Hat. So
a lot of people don't think you were.
No.
They say, "Whoa,
where'd you come from? And how'd you get here? Did you get refugee status?" I will tell you, I've had a few. How did you get refugee status? Well, I didn't, but there you go.
You're a hatter.
I'm a hatter. I am probably the worst Indian you'll ever meet. So, there you go. So my parents immigrated in the 50s, actually, and they came to Dalhousie first, and that's where they'd spent some time doing some teaching, Dalhousie University.
Our friend Tyson, who's running this,
that's right,
is from away.
Yeah,
and away meaning he's from Nova Scotia,
Eastern Canada,
where my parents were born.
Well, there
raised.
You go. Really?
Absolutely.
I didn't know that. Actually,
Halifax.
Maybe I did. Well, there you go. So that's where my parents. And back then, and I'll tie this to immigration. Back then, Canada would go to all these countries and recruit for immigration, and we still kind of do that. And we go to advanced education and say, hey, we need some more teachers. We need some more professors. What can we do to entice you? My parents didn't have any inclination to come to Canada. We have very good life in India, right? So, I mean, everyone thinks it's horrible, but it really isn't. So, but they came anyways. They did their time in Dalhousie. That was the deal. And then they came right across to the West Coast and hit every province. Had my brother in Ontario, so he was born in Guelph, and then they moved to the next province, Manitoba. We lived in the Pas. Because I wasn't born yet, so they lived in the Pas. They lived in Regina. They've lived in every province.
Wow.
Then they got to Medicine Hat, and my mom, they're both nurses, so they were working as nurses here in Medicine Hat Hospital in 1965. And let me tell you something. I think my dad was the first East Indian man here, and my dad, they're all passed away, but he was the color of this, like just black. And my mom was more fair, and they did not suffer any racism whatsoever. The city of Medicine Hat was apparently amazing to them, welcoming. It was just over, like he just says those were always his best memories, was Medicine Hat was amazing. And my house, I was born in that brick house right up by the hospital, and the one that's got the 2 apartment buildings behind it. But
really?
There's pictures of me standing outside with my mom before she passed with no apartment buildings behind us. So yeah, that's where I was born.
Wow.
So she was in maternity and OB, and he was psych nursing for quite a while. So anyways, but as we tend to move quite a bit. So then they came up to the Camrose area. And that's where we stayed until my mom got diagnosed with a really rare form of cancer. So we kind of stayed there until she passed away, and then all over. So my dad had a habit of like maybe 18 months and we were gone. Yeah. So so even though I was born here, I probably didn't come back till 80s when I reconnected with you. And kind of relived my youth, and went back to Calgary for a bit, come back here. It's like that. Everybody comes back to Medicine Hat, so I did, and I came back again. Left for Europe for a little bit. I ended up getting married at one point, and we lived over in England for a bit, and then we got posted right back to Medicine Hat. So I came right back.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So overall, like a pretty eventful / uneventful, because I'm right back where I started. In that time, I will tell you, I was a typical, started at Earl's maybe in my early 20s, did every other job in between, as you do when you don't know what you want to do, and then just kind of bounced around trying to find what I wanted, and had a lot of fun doing it. Like, truly had a lot of fun. There's not a part of my years where I go, oh, I wish I didn't do that. I'm glad I did everything that I did. There should be no regrets.
No
right?
scars, no visible scars.
No visible
You're good.
scars. I'm good.
Yeah.
No.
When did you get, I mean, your life, your working life is, I mean, a lot of it that I know about has been in human resources.
It is.
And you worked for big companies, small companies, did some international work, did some national work. So how did you get into the human resources?
So interestingly enough, you're going to love this, because I don't even think you really know this. I thought there was a point in my life where I thought, Shila, you can't just go drink, party, smoke, and do whatever the heck you want to do. You got to be an adult. So I said, okay, what? And I was living in Medicine Hat. I'm like, okay, what's a job that'll make me get up and go to work? Because I don't miss work. So if I'm working, I don't call in. I don't miss work. It doesn't matter what you feel like, you go to work. So I'll go apply at Lakeside Packers. I thought, oh, you didn't know that, did you?
No.
Yeah. So I applied at Lakeside Packers. I thought day shift is perfect. I have to be up at stupid o'clock, 3 o'clock. So you're not going to go drinking till midnight. So, well, that's the theory.
I've broken that theory before, but
Me too. So I started out, I got a great job at Lakeside. I was just one of the lucky ones. I got into quality control right away. And I worked in quality control, and I got promoted in that area right away, probably 3-6 months, and I ended up being a junior lead hand and then a supervisor. But here's where it gets interesting. I was always the one that if there was a problem on one of the lines, one of the supervisors would call and say, hey, could you maybe talk to this person? They seem to listen to you. And I'm like, fine. And I'd go down and talk to it. So all of a sudden, we were running on B shift, which now needed a full HR department because there were 700 people. So we needed. So Brent Altwasser comes to me, who's the owner at the time before it sold to, went multinational, and said, are you interested in being in HR? And I'm like, no, I don't want to listen to people complain all day. And he's like, are you sure? He says, because you seem to have a knack for it. He says, you're not the cuddliest person ever. No, not at all. But I find people don't really want that. Not people that really want to improve. But anyway, so I said no. And then about 3 months later, I just thought, why am I saying no? I really kind of do like it. So I went back to him and he says, sure, absolutely, you can still have the position. So I was pretty much given the position, which was very incredible. And they put me through school a little bit, and then I put myself through school. And I just loved it because it was not about where I think we've gone in HR, but it was where we were in HR, where we talked, we listened, we strategized, but we didn't coddle. We helped employees become better. We helped them with coping skills. It wasn't as sensitive as I'm finding it right now, where I'm struggling. There's days where I'm like, okay, stop. Because I like to treat people as equals, and as equals, I will always speak my mind and be very honest and open. And I find that sometimes if we don't do that, we're almost condescending, and I don't think anybody deserves to be condescended. So maybe that's not the right theory, but that's the theory I come from. So that's what started me in HR. And then I moved to England, and I got another HR job in a pyrotechnics plant, which was way cool. So they actually built the pyrotechnics that attached to the planes, to the bomber planes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So very cool to learn about that. They wouldn't let me play with the ammo, but whatever. An incredible opportunity, incredible experience. I will never forget that time because we were there maybe 2 years and we had to come back. But as I'm flying back to Canada, I go on to Job Bank, I think it is, and there's an HR job. So I thought, I'll try it. So literally leaving Heathrow, I applied for this HR job, land in Calgary, and I've got an interview the next day. And I'm like, I don't even have my clothes. But I met with the owner the next day. We landed in Calgary and we drove to Medicine Hat right away, or to Battis base. And I got a cab and came down for my interview because obviously didn't have a vehicle. And I got hired on the spot, and that was Whitkey. So Whitkey ended up being Federal Signal, so I worked for Whitkey for a few years before they sold, and then they went and Federal Signal bought us out of Chicago, so I worked for them for the next 6-7 years. And I stayed with them for an additional 2 years after we closed here. So that's what actually led to my immigration. So I ended up being promoted from HR manager to HR director, and I got responsibility for 4 different plants. So 2 in Canada, 2 in the States. And as we were doing that, we were also doing engineering roles from China and India, and nobody knew how to get them into Canada. So they would always phone me and say, how do you get them into Canada? We got them into the States, but they won't let us in. I'm like, because we don't care that you got them into the States. We're still our own country. So then, way back then, it was a very different time. I could actually phone immigration and say, I need a work permit. I need this. And we'd get them in. Because those people coming over here to help us got our product to the market faster, right? So it was very, very cool. So I
sold some houses to some of these Chinese engineers.
Yes, you did. And you know what? They're still in town.
No way.
One of them, Sam.
Sam?
Sam lives across the street and one down from me.
Oh, my God.
And every morning, Shila, he walks by me, right? Every morning he goes for a walk. And every morning, you're the reason I'm here.
Yeah.
And he loves this community.
Yeah. I remember Sam, and I also remember a guy who isn't here. But when he came here, Chinese man, him and his wife had me over one time, and they made dumplings for me. But when he bought his house, he was very fussy about the numbers on the offer to purchase, and they had to be a sequence, like close to and it was cultural for him.
Absolutely.
And I was okay with it, and I said, "Listen, it's going to be okay, but the people on the receiving end may not understand this." And so, and in fact, they didn't.
Okay. You don't say.
No, the guy on the other end, he was, he's a little bit crusty, and he said, I don't understand this, and I don't care. And I said, well, listen, he does, and it's important to him. And he's a good man, right? They're good people. And it's just, it's just part of how their
Absolutely.
beliefs. And so we worked it out until literally almost 2 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And that's before the faxes and the internet and all this kind of stuff. Real estate was different then. But I always remember, and I remember saying to him that it's okay. Stay with your beliefs. We're going to do this. We don't have to cave to it. Just took a little bit of work. But I remember some of these guys. These guys were great guys.
Yes. Yeah. We were so lucky. We got some of the top talent around the world.
Oh, they were good.
Medicine Hat.
Yeah.
Right. We were incredibly lucky, right from chassis engineers to, there's not a big schooling out there for an engineer that understands chassis. So we were incredibly lucky to find some of the talent we did, and we retained the talent that we had until the days we closed, right? So that was so frustrating.
So after Whitkey is when you went on your own.
I said, I'm done, because I literally fired probably 4,000 people in less than a week. So they flew me to Appleton. I fired all of them, and then I fired another plant, and I came back, and I did Medicine Hat, and I did, including all the management. So I was literally last man standing for an additional 2 years. So it was, I just thought, I always tease that I'm fine, I'd fire my mother, right? That's kind of my go-to saying, because I really have no problem terminating a position if that isn't the right person in the position. Because I don't feel guilty about that. I would hope somebody would say, you know what, Shila, you probably shouldn't be a shaman. Okay, you're right. Noted. So I appreciate the honesty. So I found it tough, and I thought, okay, this is a lot of people. I mean, literally after I did this, people were like throwing their shopping carts at me in town, and one guy didn't almost stop his vehicle because they were mad, and I get it. And they saw me as the target because it was my name on the bottom of my letter. And I tried to explain to them, my letter has my name at the bottom because nobody signed my letter. So I get it. But it was hard, right? Because we put our heart and soul into it, Keith. Like those employees.
Yeah.
I mean, nowhere, I'm
That was
the
a
bottom.
strong unit out there.
Absolutely. And, we really were. They're still family. Yeah. I still keep in touch. In fact, I'll tell you, when I decided to run for council, the amount of employees that came onto Facebook, some of them I even terminated. Bernie, the amount of support I got was unreal. And it was all comments like, you won't regret voting her in. You will know that whatever she says, she'll say behind your back too. So, and because that is my thing. So, yeah, I was very, very lucky.
No, I think I did quite a bit of work, because of you. I think it was a solid unit.
Yeah.
Very good.
Unfortunate, but we lost all those jobs to Quebec, right? So that unit was sold to our biggest competitor. And it was very, very sad because we were a big employer. We were the biggest employer. At the time, we were bigger than the city. So
the stress is you're going to start your own company. I mean, that's stressful, right?
It was very stressful. Married at the time, so always had that secondary income, and kind of maybe knowing that in the back, I felt more confident about doing it. I didn't need it, so I started in staffing, and the more staffing I did, I realized, and I bought it from the local staffing agency to begin with. So I started my own, and then I bought out the local staffing agency, and I knew it would be up for purchase because we were their biggest client. So I knew that their bottoms were falling out. So the list was going to get easier to get.
Yes.
So bought that, and then did some HR consulting and continued down that path. So did a little bit of training, and I realized I don't enjoy training. So I took my sign down and I took the training part off the sign. I'm not going to do something I don't enjoy anymore. So I still do recruitment, and I still do some HR consulting for some bigger clients, and I enjoy that. I love the one-on-one. I love getting through the strategy of an organization and getting people working and getting them to understand we don't all have to sit in a room and sing Kumbaya. We have to be able to get along, work with each other, respect each other. But at the end of the day, there is somebody in charge. He calls the shots, and we learn to respect that and work around that. But when you respect everybody's capabilities that are coming to the table, it's a different animal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you carried on. Everything was good.
Everything was great. Everything was really good. I will tell you that the HR market changed, I'm going to say 2010, 11, the first time. And we saw what we're seeing now, and that was people refusing to work. And refusing because for different reasons, but a lot of it was, I'm not going to work for that amount. The oil patch pays way more. Well, the oil patch pays way more, but you don't have any of those skills. And so the argument was always, well, employers need to pay what the oil patch pays. Well, most employers don't have those margins, right? So they couldn't. So what we were finding, it was very cyclic. They would work for the oil patch, and then they'd come home and they'd realize, their spouses were ready to kill them. Their kids didn't know who they were. So then they wanted to try a local job again. Well, that didn't work because it's 1/3 the amount. And there was never really an understanding that the margins weren't there. We just can't make up those margins. So it just really started some issues locally for employment. And we found it wasn't just Medicine Hat. It was Alberta as a whole has a bit of a issue when it comes to those other jobs that aren't oil related or the higher wage impact, right?
Yeah.
Higher wage for not the same education level that it deems. So it caused some problems. Yeah.
Immigration. The city of Medicine Hat looks much different today, and I'm happy about
absolutely.
that than it did certainly 20 years ago with respect to culturally, and I think that makes us better, and will continue to make us better.
We need more.
And you do a lot of you help a lot of families with immigration.
I do.
And so if somebody needs help, I mean, what's the first step in, well, there's many ways you can help somebody, right?
Yeah. Okay, so So first, if you look at the overall immigration platform, there's like 69 different ways to come into Canada. Some of them fall under one category called express entry, and then there's Canadian experience, and then there's various refugees. And there's humanitarian and compassionate. I tend to focus on express entry, family class, and spousal. However, if I get the odd one from refugee and say, can you help us? So there's different refugee types. There's government sponsored, there's groups of 5 is what they're called legally. So group of 5 friends can get together and sponsor. And that's all it is. So you're signing a document with the Canadian government. You might never know who this person is, but you say, we as a group of 5 want to go sponsor that family in Ukraine right now to get them out and bring them here. And the 5 of us accept responsibility. We'll set them up. We'll cover a year. I'll tell you right now, most groups of 5 never even have to cover more than 3 to 4 months because most refugees get here and they don't want a handout. They want to work. So they hit the ground running. And then there's church. So all churches can sponsor. So majority of the refugees that we get in Canada are church and groups of 5. They're not government. So in other words, when you hear things that it's all my taxpayer dollars, that's actually not very true. Not very often anyways.
Really?
Yeah. So ever since the war started right now in Ukraine, the amount of calls I've gotten saying, Shila, if anybody wants to sponsor and they need additional money, from some really local business, like amazing business people that I would never have thought, some of these people are phoning me, Shila, if somebody wants to sponsor and they don't have the money, I'll give them the capital. It was amazing. So, or if anybody's coming and they need anything, please let us know. We will just donate.
So I think when it's over, I wish it was over 2 weeks ago, but when it's over, I think 1.2 or 1.3 million have left the country. And now Russians are leaving the country. So it could, in 6 months, it could be 3 million people that are basically out of their country. And eventually they're going to want to, Canada, so I could see Medicine Hat would get some people, right?
Absolutely. Well,
hopefully.
I hope so. So, tying this back to HR, when we're talking industry and companies, and the very first thing they do is they kind of do a population analysis. So one of the things that holds Medicine Hat back is our population analysis. And that's not a dig to anybody, but if you're a company coming in and you know that you need, 100 workers and then you'll need 50 more and 75 more, and then you look at the birth rate and you look at the age, median and maximum age, we're running into an issue. We can't replenish. And that's one of the reasons Whitkey ended up for sale. Every time I was recruiting in Eastern Canada. I couldn't recruit in Western Canada. Like we could not get people of the age category because welding is hard on your body. And so you need a certain age group that can handle it because you can't keep hiring the over 50s to do these jobs. They're hurting themselves and justly so, right? So we never met that demographic. So, I will tell you, before we closed the doors, Federal Signal actually hired a population analyst to work in this area. And I was super fortunate I got to work with her. So I got to learn a lot. But, she wrote up reports for the local municipal government, for the provincial, for the federal, and she was an American, and said, we can keep all our companies here, but you have to increase your immigration numbers because your birth rate isn't there. So if the birth rate isn't there and won't maximize for another 20 years, your immigration numbers have to be. And we just never got there.
So then COVID hit, and a lot of things changed.
It did. So market for HRs changed considerably. We're seeing the Great Resignation, I think you've heard, I'm not sure if you've heard that. It's called, so you're hearing lots of talk about the Great Reset. There's also what's going on in the world called the Great Resignation. So people are just resigning their jobs, deciding we don't need this. COVID changed a lot of attitudes about what they have to do, what's acceptable. They can work from home, don't tell me what to do, like everything from one extreme to the other. So there's something to be learned from COVID from an employer point of view, saying, well, can they work from home and can we do that? Because if that's possible, there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of it's going to another step where employees are also saying, I don't need to be told what to do. But I think where the difference is that there was a lot of subsidies, and all those subsidies come to a grinding halt in 2 weeks. So it's going to be a different world, right? So right now you can still get EI if your employer has a vaccine mandate, for example, and you don't want one. You can still get EI. Those aren't going to be reasonable reasons not to be because there's no mandates. right? So any employer can still choose that, but that's just their own internal health and safety. But you won't be able to get EI for it any longer because there's going to be other work available. So it's going to be very interesting. So all the CERBs are gone, all the employer benefits are gone, everything's gone in March. And March 22nd, I believe, is the last day for everything. So it was funny, I was talking to you're my real estate friend, my restaurant friend, and he owns a restaurant here in town. And it's funny, it's the exact opposite of what I thought would happen, but they lifted all the mandates. He has no business. And he's not pro-mandate at all, and so he's kind of shocked. He said, I thought this would open the floodgates. But it had the reverse effect, is what he's telling me. People are scared that the person next to him isn't vaccinated, so they're not going. So he's gone from going full capacity to 30% capacity. And it's scared because in 2 weeks, any funding is gone for people to keep their doors open. So then what happens? And so there's a few restaurants that are like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if we're going to keep our doors open. So.
It's a crazy time.
Yeah, and he never thought he'd be on the side of saying, maybe we need mandates because people were scared to go. And I said, I think the word scared is a little, not everybody's scared. Some people just choose. That's not what they want to do, right?